welcome to TamiyaSC. I'm Armand Gutierrez. Today we're going to be talking about rollers. So our last video, a good YouTuber asked us an important question. Michael Yim asked us, how do different roller setups affect the car? An example, wider in front, less wide in the tail versus wide both in front and back. Well, Michael, the deal is that it actually comes with efficiency and it comes with capability of turning. So, for example, wider in the front, less wide in the tail means that your car is going to be pointed more into the turn. And it also means that you're going to have to pretty much be a little less stable. Since the back of your car is going to be closer to the wall and the front of your car is going to be farther back, that means as your car takes the turn, it goes in here. All right, put the car in here. All right, it goes in here, and so now it's actually pointing a little less from the wall, and well, that just makes a better turn. It makes it going to go faster. While a car here is 13 millimeter rollers in the front and the back. It's actually going to end up relatively straight. It's not going to take the turn nearly as fast. And what's interesting about this is that you can't really see the difference. It's only a 5 millimeter difference between this car and this car being in the track. To be absolutely honest, I can put them right next to each other and whatnot, and you can't really see on the camera. And even in person, it's a little difficult to see. You actually need to do some really good math to be able to do this. Well, interestingly enough, our good buddies at Tamiya USA have written an article just giving you the basics about it. And let's see if we can find that window. Doo-doo-doo. Well, here's a tip. Anytime you need to do research, you can go Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive. And then I like to type in the word basics at the end. And the first article that comes up for me is by Tamiya USA. It's on their old website for Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive, and they actually have a wonderful little article about rollers. So they say for the same size front and rear, this makes your car easier to run straight since rollers are aligned parallel when they connect to the wall, and also minimizes power loss because your car's not pushing in or out more. For the larger rollers in the front, you have suitable for courses with many corners, since this pushes your car toward the inside of the course when the roller contacts a wall. And then smaller in the front means that your car is actually going to run along the wall, and it's going to push more closer to the wall, which actually gives it a lot more stability, but it gives you some power loss since the motor is actually pushing more toward into a wall. And to be absolutely honest, I can't really explain it any better than that. The mathematical explanation, the really big explanation, is in reference to angles and where your car is pointing. And so technically, the only next thing I can tell you is that the website that I just read from, the website, the link is actually going to be in the comments, so make sure you have that so that way you can read more Mini 4-wheel drive basic knowledge. This website's absolutely awesome. It explains a lot and it gives you a little bit of detail on the basics and whatnot, but we'll go into more detail later on. Either way, you're probably asking, okay, so which one's better? And to be absolutely honest, there's never a right answer for what's better in Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive. Since the game is all about designing your car for a specific track or even a track setup, it's hard to say. To be absolutely honest, the cars that I've won the most with have either equal rollers in the front or back. So the, let's see, Ice here has 13 millimeter rollers in the front and 13 millimeter rollers in the back. And this has won first place at a very large meet. And then I have my Blast Arrow, which is extremely stable car, and it has 8 millimeter rollers in the front, and it has 19 millimeter rollers in the back. But there's a catch. Both of the cars actually max out the 105 millimeter limit to the whole cars. So for example, here, when you put this car in, the front has no more room to go in and out, but the back does. The back can actually move in and out. And the reason why is because when you put the rollers within the stays in the specific holes, by putting them in the specific holes, you're actually maxing out your 105 millimeter rule limit for official Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive. If you have, though, the 19 millimeter hole on your car, so for example, this is a front stay from here to here, And this is specifically designed for 17mm rollers and 19mm rollers. And the deal with it is that since your 19mm rollers are normally supposed to go in here, if you do something smaller and you can make it fit, either by cutting the rest of the bar or just by buying the way it is for this one, you're actually going to be a little less than 105 millimeters. And that will allow you to make that difference between the 8 and the 13 and actually make the difference like the basics page does. Because originally, back in the day, we didn't have these stays. We didn't have RFP plates. We didn't have these carbon plates. And I don't know why I'm saying we. This was all before I was even born. But these FRP plates, as you can see in our last video and in this one, we have different holes. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 holes. And so these holes are specifically made for certain rollers. So the outermost hole is for 8 millimeters. So when you put two 8mm rollers right here to here, you're actually going to be going 105 millimeters all the way across. The 13mm rollers go a little bit more in, but since they're bigger, it makes up for it with the size of the roller. So this roller from here to here is also 105 millimeters. So technically, if you put the rollers where the instructions say to put them, you're actually going to be maxing out your 105 millimeters. The way you get the better turns and everything and whatnot is by creating that room by putting the rollers in the 19mm spot. If you can roll against the wall really nice and easy. If I were to put the smaller rollers on the 19mm spot for this, the edge would actually hit against the wall and it would skid across the wall, and that would be a disqualified car because you're not allowed to damage the track. So interestingly enough, you have to have the specific rollers and stays to fit, or you have to cut the FRP plate, or just get the bar stays like here, because these work really, really well. Because what those end up doing is actually going to the hole limit that's actually already on the chassis. So here we have a Super XX, and here we have a Super 2. The Super 2 19mm roller is actually, oh, I need a pointer. We'll use these. Right here is actually the 19mm roller, right in this farthest hole, and the 19mm roller here is this most inner hole here. These holes actually line up exactly the same. The only difference between the Super 2 and the Super XX, not only is the size of the chassis and whatnot, but the Super 2 has this extra mount right out here that could be used for 8mm rollers. So with all that in mind, really you got to choose your chassis first, and then you got to choose your carbon plate first. And so the different size rollers, there's, yet again, not one thing better than the other, but it actually depends on the track. If you want a really, really fast car and you want to make sure it takes the turns really fast, go with large in the front and small in the back. And then, of course, if you go 19mm rollers in the front and 13mm rollers in the back, or 19mm in the front or 8mm in the back, the difference between the 13 and the 8 is going to be a 5mm difference for how much of your angle is going to be putting in. Of course, the wider angle, or pushing more into the turn, will be an 8mm roller in the back, 19mm roller in the front. Otherwise, pretty much just stick with what you can afford and what you like more. The front rollers, I always like to go with 13mm rollers, just so that way I can make sure I have the double-ended rollers as shown on this car, so that way if I tilt, this top part will activate. But I hope that's enough, and I hope that explained everything, because choosing your rollers are pretty important. Choosing the difference between a metal roller and a rubber roller, or even the plastic rollers, can change a lot. Plastic rollers are some of the slowest rollers I've ever seen, but if you have a really powerful engine and you only have one and you really need to slow it down, well, then go with the plastic rollers. Wide both in the front and the back. Well, that's just about efficiency. That's about just hitting that wall, being parallel against it, and then going. To be honest, that's your safest bet. If you want to be really, really stable, I suggest you do 8mm rollers in the front and 19mm rollers in the back. You're going to be slamming against that wall, and you ain't going to go anywhere. And you're going to lose a lot of power, but it's going to be more stable. You're way less likely to fall out that way. So it depends on technically what you're looking for, but the difference is how much it's going to push into the track. The link for the Tamiya USA article is going to be in the comments. If you like the video, please hit like. If it was helpful in any way, please hit like. That helps us a lot. And then, of course, if you want to, you're more than welcome to subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments. I'll make sure to reply them. Next time, we're going to be talking about how do weights work, because these next 4 videos are going to be the featured Michael Yim videos because he was cool enough to ask questions and work with us on this project. Either way, I'm Armand Gutierrez. This is TamiyaSC. I'll see you next time. Bye.